Shalom, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.KosherTorah.com. We are now going to start a new series, a series of lesson shorts from the biblical book of Kohelet, Ecclesiastes. And we're going to handle this course in a wee bit different way than what you may be exposed to in the past. As you know, here at our KosherTorah School, I endeavor to teach what we call the Prophetic Kabbalah of the Bible, the biblical Kabbalah, the original, authentic teachings, the codes, the meditative prophetic orientations. And, good gosh, there's no better place to start with something like that than in the writings of who was understood and still renowned to be one of the wisest men in human history, King Solomon himself. Since biblical times, King Solomon's wisdom was not just in the philosophical with wise tidbits and wise words here and there. I mean, we could find that with people from all around the world. Have you ever studied the teachings of the original Buddha? Or Lao Tzu, or some of the wise words that, like even Patanjali out of India, or other Native American, shamanistic, certainly Islamic and even Christian sources have always had their profound, wise philosophers and teachers. But before them all, it was Solomon. It is said that Solomon knew the languages of every species on earth. He not only could talk to the animals, Dr. Dolittle style, he could talk to the forces in nature. He spoke with the spirits. They say he had knowledge of the Shadim, the jinn. Oh, there's a lot of teachings on that in Jewish, Christian, and Islamic sources. So, when we go back to look at the wise words of the king, the master of Jerusalem, we have to understand what we're dealing with here. And this is very important as we begin. Because remember this, for the most part, for those of you who probably have read in a translation, English, Spanish, French, whatever, those books which you call the Bible, I'm going to tell you something that you may not like. And that is, you've never read or studied the TaNaKh, the Bible, ever in your lives. Translations just don't cut it. You got to get to the original and peel away the layers to see what's really there. And King Solomon, our man of wisdom, you really think that he was just a simpleton who just said simple, pithy words like you read in Proverbs or Ecclesiastes and the like, and that's it? Then you don't know Shlomo. Well, in this series, following in our footsteps in the Prophetic Kabbalah, the Kabbalah of the Bible, we're going to do some of that. Because it's important and imperative that if we really want to become aware of the spiritual reality around us and truly recognize what it is we are involved with as human beings, well, we got to penetrate. We got to learn to see beyond the facade of the matrix and get into the real nitty-gritty details of things. And that is what this series of lesson shorts is going to be derived in. So when we're going to look at each and every verse, starting with Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, we'll read the verse, recognize the words, we'll get some of those pithy philosophical ideas out, of course, and then we'll go a wee bit deeper. And I say a wee bit. Why? Because I'm going to be the first to confess with you. The wise words of the great sage from Pirkei Avot said, Hafuch ba v'hafuch ba dokula ba. Hafuch ba, flip it. Hafuch ba, flip it again. Dekula ba, everything's in it. Now, flip it once, flip it twice, everything, no matter what, you're going to find in there. That is said with regards to the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. But it's equally applicable to all the other books of the prophets and the writings, our TaNaKh. Remember this. These words were written in ancient languages. They were written in forms of literature which were common in those cultures in those days. Long, long time ago, culture far, far away. And when we try to take these words and translate them and think that we understand them in our modern context, in our modern culture, you're missing all the nuance of everything that underlies what the original was meant to be. That's why I say, if you've never studied TaNaKh in the original Hebrew or Aramaic, then you're never going to understand it. You need to see it within its context. And that's why language is vital. Now, let's talk for a moment about authorship. As I'm sure you know, secular scholars will say, well, we're not really sure whether the historical King Solomon ever really wrote this book. We're not even sure if there really was a historical King Solomon. Yeah, okay. You know what? For those people who are of that mindset, remember, that's obviously a secular mindset. And remember what the secular mindset is. Not only are they not going to believe in the validity, authenticity, or value of biblical texts, they're going to pretty much, whether they say it or not believe in a God, a divine order, an intelligent design, the existence of a soul or an afterlife, all the spiritual realities which anybody who's ever had a spiritual experience knows exists. For them, well, I don't see it. I don't see it. It's not there. I need scientific proof. Let me tell you something. If science was honest and not as, shall we say, prejudicial as many religions are, then the overwhelming experiences of the vast majority of human beings on the face of the planet who at one time or another have had some type of extrasensory perception, some type of supernatural experience and the like, you would say, well, they are not normal. Heck yeah, they're normal. They're the majority. 70-80% of the population of the planet feel and experience things. It's kind of like describes the norm. And those who are in denial of this, they're the abnormal ones. So, if you want to turn to, in quote, academic sources, which seek to invalidate, Torah and God and authority, and knock yourself out. If that's the way you want to go for it. You're going to find that we have a completely different view here, but I just want to make a comment. I'm not here to debate those of that persuasion, prove them wrong or anything. Why? Because I just put a big X through it and I just dismiss it. I'm not interested. All right? You don't want to believe in God? Don't believe in God. You don't want to believe in the authority and authenticity of the teachings? Don't believe. What do you want from me? All right? I'm not God's policeman. I don't have an agenda. My job is just to share with you. You'll see, you'll experience, you'll know for yourselves. How's that? The wise words of the king of Jerusalem, Shlomo, whose name, as you know, from Shlomo, shalom, it means peace. Shlomo means completion, wholeness. If you remember from the biblical teachings, he was the promised son. Now, King David had many wives. He had many sons. If you remember how he came about to be with Solomon's mom, Bathsheba, it wasn't exactly what we would call the most kosher way. But funny how God seems to work with all of that. If you look at the entire history of the tribe of Judah, it started, of course, with Judah and Tamar, which was not exactly a kosher bonding there either. We had the weird episode with Boaz and, of course, Ruth coming out of Moab. And then here we are now, David, who is a wild and crazy guy going around killing giants. And he had a really rough time. But his son is called the complete one. And Solomon was the wisest, most powerful man in his day. He expanded ancient Israel to a point of super, what do we call that now? Like a superpower status. That's pretty much what Israel was in his day. It's never been ever since. The temple that he built, many mysteries thereof, many mysteries about his life. So, with this, we're going to come now to Kohelet. And we're going to try to peel away some of those mysteries. Look at some of those codes. And we're going to get into numerical values. We're going to get into what we call the Reshe Tevot, which are capital letters, which form, if you will, abstract forms of chants. And I discussed this in many of my other meditative courses. And of course, when we get to it, I'll review practical applications of how that can be done as well. Remember, this series of mini lessons, like all my others, are not meant to just give you academic entertainment or information. It's meant to, I hope to do, is inspire you to look deeper, delve for yourselves, experience for yourselves. We're not here to fight and to debate and to argue, right? It's very much, I don't want to close your eyes and say, look for the light. Oh yeah, I see it. No, you don't with your eyes closed. No, I want you to see the light. See the light for yourselves. Experience it for yourselves. If I take you out on a sunny day and I say, do you see that big bright ball up in the sky? Yeah, it's burning my eyes. There you go. Nothing more to say. That's called the sun. Now, how do I know that's called the sun? How do I know that's not called the moon? Okay, you want to call it the moon? Knock yourself out. I don't care. You see it? Yep, done. Okay, that's the light. And the light that we see is not the light of the sun outside, but the light of enlightenment inside. And who could better teach this to us than Solomon himself? First words of this book is, in Hebrew, Divrei Kohelet ben David melech beYerushalem. And you translate that as, these are the words of Kohelet, the son of David, king in Jerusalem. All right, not much to say there, is it? Wait a second. I thought his name was Solomon. Why would he call himself Kohelet, which is the Hebrew name of the book? The word Kohelet comes from the word kahal, which means a congregation. So a Kohelet is the guy who's like reading to or talking to the one who's addressing the gathering. All right, the Kohelet is the one who addresses the kahal. So these are the words of the Kohelet. He's talking to everybody now. So, what do I learn just from a single word? Answer, that these secret teachings, they're for everybody. They're for everybody who wants to learn them. And he's called Ben David, the son of David. And he is the king. And here's curious, it doesn't say, all right, Melech Yerushalayim, the king of Jerusalem. It says the king in. And Jerusalem is actually written in a weird way because the letter's missing. Yerushalayim has two yuds in it. It's spelled Yud Resh Vav Shin Lamed Yud Mem. This one doesn't have it. So it's Yerushalem, like Shalem, like Shalomo. Yeah, same words. Okay. What are the words? What's he trying to get to us? What's the big deal? Curious. Let's look at the individual words. I love looking at codes. I look at the individual words of a Hebrew text and I analyze their numerical values and I look at the correlatives. And of course, there's always something there to find. The word divrei, words of, all right, Dalet Bet Reshut, numerical value is 216. For those of you who know mysticism, 216 is a big word. It means the word lion, like roaring lion. The verse in the prophet said, the lion will roar, who will not fear? God has prophesied, who will, not listen. So the lion is a symbol of the emanation of the words of God. And 216 is also the Hebrew word for gevurah, severity, form, structure. And it's also the secret of 72 times 3, which is the triad, the 72 triad name of God, the powerful name, which is the underlying force which can control everything in heavens and the earth. So these words that we're going to learn here show us that they are both prophecy and that there is a power within them corresponding to the 72 triad names of God, which have an influence over everything, over space and to time and heavens and the earth. So in a simple word, I see a code which is telling us, sit back, because this ain't just old philosophy. There's depth here, and depth that's going to teach us how to ascend, how to experience, and know. What are we going to know? How about the words of the Kohelet ben David? Remember him? The Kohelet, not Shlomo, Kohelet. Well, Kohelet ben David. Curious. Numerical value 601. It's actually the Hebrew word, the gematria numerical value, the Hebrew word atar. And atar means a place. And we always say, blessed be Hashem from his place. So where do these words take us to? When we're talking about the secret codes here that connect us to prophecy, it's going to take us to that place where in which God can be experienced. Okay, where is that place? Gee, I'd love to get there. You know what that place is? It's the radiant mind. It's the mind or the consciousness of the one who can see the inner light. That Hebrew term would be called sechel, meir, the radiant light within. Oh, by the way, sechel meir, right, the radiant light, that's also numerical value 601. The same as the atar, the place, the same as Kohelet ben David. But this is all coincidence, right? None of this is there, reading into it, right? It's there. The numbers speak for themselves. So let all the skeptics doubt all they want, all right? What can I say? Math is the language of the universe. When the numbers speak, nothing else to say. He is called the King Be-Yerushalem, all right? Curious. King in Jerusalem. King in Jerusalem. Numerical value 678. Go check that out. Curious. When we receive these words and these teachings, right? What do? Got to teach them. But teaching them is not just a philosophical discussion. It's an experiential interaction. So we would apply the words kol mevaser, the voice of the heralder, who's speaking within you to awaken you, to arouse you to hear the truth. Kol mevaser. Kol mevaser, mevaser ve'omer. Voice of the herald. Numerical value 678, the same as the King of Jerusalem. All prophecy, as we know, comes right out of the Kodesh Kodeshim. Comes right off of the Ark of the Covenant, because that's where the Shekhinah, the profound place of Hashem is, right between the two Keruvim, right between the two cherubim. Shnaim Keruvim, right, in Hebrew, two cherubim, Keruvim, numerical value, 678. Melech Be'Yerushalem, the conduit for the voice. And who is this conduit for the voice? Who else but King Solomon, the wisest of all men? Yeah, believe it or not, in Hebrew, Shlomo HaMelech, HaChacham Ekol Adam, numerical value, 678. Melech Be'Yerushalem. It's all numbers. I'm reading into it. It's all make-believe, right? It's my imagination, right? Numbers don't lie. When we come to experience the wisdom of Kohelet, and we see and we learn and we put into practice, you will know. Let the skeptics say whatever they want. Who cares? It's like the little children in the sandbox who are arguing over their toys. That's fine. Children will be children. They will not understand the ways of adults until they grow up. Well, this is grown-up lessons. That's what our KosherTorah School is here to provide for you. And that is what we're here to experience. Go look at the numerical values yourselves and see them for yourselves. And we'll pick this up in our continuing lessons here in the book of Kohelet, in the biblical Kabbalah, the truth of the spirit of prophecy. I'm your host, Ariel Tzadok, from the KosherTorah School. We'll see you all in our next class. Thank you all for joining me. Hey, subscribe to our channel. Click like on the videos. You know, I never say these things. I'm supposed to say these things, so I'm saying it to you now. All right, let's get the message out. Let's try to expand this out. Work with me on this. I'd really appreciate it. All righty, guys. We'll see you all in our next class. Shalom.